Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Zach, and we have a fantastic show today where we're going to be discussing a little bit more on hobbies like we discussed last week and a little bit more pointed discussion on that as well. But I can get to those details later. However, I can't do this alone. So as always, I'm joined by Rafe. Rafe, how you doing today?
Zach, how would I be if I were not fantastic? It is, like I said, it's always a great day, and it's always a great day to be doing a podcast with you. It's autumn is on its way, and that is exciting. Although nighttime is getting longer and daytime is getting shorter, but we'll be all right because we got a podcast to do. First of all, thank you to all our listeners. Without you, we're nothing. So we appreciate having you here. As always, you can reach us at bufnagle@bufnagle.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we're all sorts of places. Zach, we are literally everywhere. I think they found a stamp that actually has Bufnagle the podcast on the front and has the QR code. Boom. You can go right there. We're everywhere. The Postal Service has us, Zach. All right. If you are new to our podcast, welcome. Thank you for coming. We're glad you are here. Give us 4 episodes, and we'll give you something. We'll give you something that you like. And remember, tell a friend to listen, and you will get a free episode. And if you would please, somewhere on your podcast listening machine, there's a subscribe button. Hit that button. Hit it right now. We'll wait. All right, great. Hit the button, and you are subscribed, and then you will get new content whenever we drop it. It will not be like a virus and infect your computer, so don't worry about that. Zach, that's where we are. That's how I'm doing. That's where we're going. What do we got today?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking a little bit more on hobbies, but direction of hobbies and creation and the education of the youth. But to bring in the expert on the education of the youth is an old family friend of ours, a former engineer, current engineer, a former homeschooler, a mom, a wife, a daughter, and so much more that we are not. But additionally, besides all of that, she is a absolutely pleasant soul and a joy to be around whenever you can be in her presence. So it is my absolute pleasure, is at my absolute joy to welcome Angela Nash on the show. Angela, how are you doing today?
I am great, thank you. That was a great introduction.
It is Zach's job to do that because he is it's one of those things where you appreciate what's around you, and that's part of Zach is bringing that joy and seeing what everybody has to offer. So we are really glad you are here.
Thank you. You definitely brought the joy. So, okay, first, I have a question because
Yes.
Your lovely wife makes you pudding, I have heard from previous episodes.
Yes, she makes me pudding whenever we get a 5-star review. So thank you very much for mentioning that.
Okay.
So I need some more pudding. So hit the button.
So here's the question. What kind of pudding is it?
Is there? Well, generally it's, I don't want to. Okay, she will do this thing. Sometimes she will buy the pudding, the snack pack. Is it a snack pack? Is that what it's called? Where you tear off the top? Okay, that is awesome. And that's the chocolate pudding. But sometimes she will go out of her way and get the cook and serve pudding and put it in a pie crust. Ooh. So it becomes pudding pie. And then we will have that. But Zach, there's an issue with that. When she makes that, I tend to eat like the whole pie. All right. And I have found that there's not many things that I have been able to recognize that are migraine triggers for me. I believe large amounts of chocolate pudding are migraine triggers for me. So
that if you want to be large amounts of sugar,
yeah, it could be that. But it's no. She will make the cook and serve, which, as you know, requires more effort. We have discussed the idea of making some homemade puddings, but we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay. So my favorite pudding is tapioca.
Really? With those little things inside them?
Yes.
See, I was creeped out by those when I was a kid. I was like,
so was I. And that goes with like this whole thing. So when I was little, my mom made tapioca pudding. And it creeped me out because it had the little balls, and it also has like a lot of whipped up egg white things. So it has like fluffy, lumpy egg white things.
Well, I didn't know what those little things were, and we
Yeah.
were studying like insect larvae, and I'm like,
Oh,
what
ew.
is in the pudding? It's like looks like little like no, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do tapioca. I
All
couldn't do
right.
it.
I wasn't sure if you were eating haggis every time you got a 5-star review, but
No, it was not. No, I'm not a haggis guy,
no.
but
All right. Okay.
all right. Well, thank
Welcome
you.
to the detour down Pudding Street
Okay,
by
yes,
Bufnagle the podcast.
Hey,
yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
inquiring minds needed to know what kind of pudding. You mention it like all the time, and I needed to know.
Well, that is, I guess that's the thing is when we bring people from the audience in, Zach, we take that professional risk of letting the topic go wherever they want to take it. So, but
Isn't
that
that
is a
usually your job,
But
though?
it, yeah, but so and but needing to know that is like who I am, seriously. But I am an engineer. So I am an engineer in all things. I feel like I've forever been an engineer. So ever since I've been little, though, I have had a million hobbies. Like I make all the stuff. So I've always made the things.
right. So now from what I see, I don't see you live in another state, and this is I haven't seen you in at least since you guys stopped by this summer on your way through. So, uh, but the things I see you make, I see like right behind you over your shoulder. I see a quilt, and there's a big pile of fabric there, and I know you have like this sewing machine that pretty
Yep.
much makes. You could probably program it to make carpet or something, right? I mean, it does everything, right?
Yes, I do like all the hobbies. So interestingly, my one of my earlier hobbies though was
Knitting.
knitting, and it kind of worked its way into quilting, but it was awesome the way I came into knitting. So my grandma, she has knit forever, right? And she would always make us these beautiful sweaters and slippers and all the things. And at one point when the kids were in preschool, I was wearing one of the sweaters my grandma had made, and one of the other moms commented on and said, "Oh, that's such an awesome sweater." And I said, "My grandma made it." And she said, "Oh, is your grandma still with you?" I said, "Yes, my grandma's still alive." And she said, "You need to get her to teach you how to knit before she is gone." And I said, "Yeah, yes, yes, absolutely." That is so being an engineer that likes to learn and figure things out, and also being fairly impatient. So we lived in the Chicago area. My grandma lived in Michigan, and I wasn't going to be able to go visit her for at least a month or so. So, pre-internet days, I went to the library and figuring that a book for children, I a book on knitting for children would be able to teach a child to knit. I would hopefully likewise be able to knit from that.
Well, you're right because you were an adult at this time, right?
Being an adult, yes, I was an adult at this time. I had little kids. I thought I am going to try to teach myself how to knit from a book. So I sat in the aisle at the library, looking for the best books, brought a few home, got some random things, and I figured it out. And it was so exciting.
So did you make you make sweaters or did that just kind of have you put that aside or moved on?
No, I went from there, and I was able to like a month or so later I went to visit my grandma, and I showed her. I'm like, "Graham, I figured out how to knit. Let's knit together." And she was so excited, and she saw what I was doing, and then we were able to talk knitting and share knitting things, and that was so cool. And I made all kinds of stuff, and I made stuff for all kinds of people. I knit sweaters, I knit hats, but don't knit for your preschool children. That's
Okay, I know a lady and I will not mention her name, Zach,
Yeah.
your grandma, but she,
Her initial
I know she knit a sweater for my brother
Yeah.
that she ended up giving to my nephew
Oh,
because it's just, things you get on other projects, and by the time they fit into it, they're
oh,
grown up, and you
yeah.
can't. So it,
My sweater was done in time
oh,
for
okay.
Caleb to wear it. And I was so excited because I had made a Dale of Norway sweater.
Who?
A Dale of Norway. So Dale of Norway, they're like Norwegian sweater makers, and they started making sweaters in like the late 1800s.
Okay, is it,
And,
wait, you got to say Dale, Dale?
yep,
Dale,
Dale of Norway.
Dale of Norway.
And
Okay.
they're very intricate designs, all stranded color work at the top, and with like snowflake designs and all those kind of things. Gorgeous. And the way you knit it is you knit around and around and around and around.
So you have the
And
circular needles, right? They hook up to each
yes,
other, right? Yeah. Okay.
yes, absolutely. And when you get to the armholes, you don't stop and like make an armhole. You keep going around and around and around and around till you have one big long tube.
Okay.
And then here's the bad part.
You have to take a scissors to it?
Yes.
No way, really?
Who does that? So, it's called a steek. Steek, a steek. So you actually
There's a Scrabble word for you, Zach.
I know. You actually cut your knitting with scissors.
All right, and you want to make sure you don't make a mystique.
Eek. Oh my goodness. Oh. It took me a good month of like psyching myself up and to making the cut and doing the cut.
So
and
why do the Norwegians do it that way? Isn't there like, okay, so I watched my mom knit, all right, and she would had the circular. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, you can knit with just a pair of needles, right?
Yeah.
And there's some needles that are connected to each other, so it's like one big long needle with two ends.
Yeah.
And then as you knit, it stays on. You just kind of go around and around and around.
Yeah.
But she would do a thing when she got to the armholes that would somehow leave them there, and she would knit them as separate tubes, and then you kind of sew them in, for lack of a better term. Right?
Yep. But
why did they cut? It's like, haven't they? Really? Come on,
know.
Norwegians.
Yeah, it's so I don't know. I was very proud of myself after having completed it though, because I cut it without ruining it. The process worked. I had this fabulous sweater. It was beautiful.
Now you speak about it in past tense though, is it?
Well, we still have it. Nobody can wear it now because it's too small for everybody. But at this point, because I made it for like a 5-year-old, but Caleb put it on. I was so proud of the sweater. He put it on, and oh my goodness, I think he wore it for like a minute. And he grabbed at the neck, and he goes like this. He goes, the fiber, and he tore it off.
What did you make it out of? Like, did you card your own wool and shear your own sheep or what?
I used really nice wool. So anyway.
Us 5-year-olds, I knew these little kids that like when they were put like one of my kids would get worried that his shoelaces if they would like touch the ground outside of his, like, here's your shoe and the laces, like, and he would like freak out if his shoelaces would touch the ground. So I was like, but the kids do interesting things. So all right,
they do.
So you knit.
I knit, and
you started knitting,
and I knit for a long time, and I also, because I do all the crafty things, I also made the Halloween costumes every year. So making the Halloween costumes, that's awesome, great fun. And then I decided, hey, I want a Halloween costume. So I made myself this, like, with yards and yards and miles of fabric, this awesome Renaissance replica.
I've seen that. I've seen that picture.
And I love it. I would wear it all the time, but I look like a lunatic. So I wear it every Halloween. So I don't,
Wait, I got to ask this. Okay. So you sew and you made this Renaissance thing. So I'm thinking, I keep talking that, okay, I have these sweatpants and
Yeah.
they have elastic and a drawstring around the waist, and then they have elastic around the ankles.
Yeah.
And in the spring and the fall, sometimes like the day will be cool in the morning and it'll get warmer over the course of the day. So
Yes.
I just take the pants and I pull the cuff up to the knee.
Yeah.
Okay. So they are like braces, I think is what they called them in
Yes.
medieval times. All
Yes.
right. And I keep looking, I keep threatening. I threatened my wife that I'm going to go to a seamstress somewhere and have somebody make me braces. So
Oh.
that they're like dress shorts, maybe.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think the colonial wear with the braces and then just the undershirt, and then what if they have undershirt, overshirt,
Yep.
and then the jacket, and then the
Yep.
overcoat, right?
Yes.
So it's all about layering. But I think if you've worn baseball pants, you know what that's like. And the baseball pants should be worn up. They should be high near the knee. And I think that's what I want. I want like essentially baseball or football pants that I can wear in a dress situation. So I don't have to wear these long pants all the way down to my feet. Zach, what do you think?
You work from home. Wouldn't you ever have to wear dress clothes? You wear sweatpants to work anyways, as it is now, and you're complaining that your sweatpants aren't good enough?
Well, my sweatpants are good enough, but your mother, my wife, tends to get upset when I go outside wearing my sweatpants in
Maybe you should get like
braces
nicer
mode.
pair of athletic shorts, and you could wear those in public.
Yeah, she doesn't. She refers to the gym shorts, as shiny shorts, right?
She doesn't refer to my shorts like that.
You wear rugby shorts, so that's a different. That's a different kettle of fish altogether. Okay, so could you make me these Renaissance pants?
I don't know. That sounds. That would be tricky. Pants, I think, are hard.
Well, I think. Well, I suppose you could start. Well, yeah. I don't think they had. I think they just drawstring, didn't they? What did they do in 1780?
That's not too hard. It is. All the things kind of go together with like a drawstring, and
right?
Stuff,
right, and it's easy, and it doesn't matter if you eat a lot or if you're having kind of a skinny day. You just tighten them up.
Yes.
The best pants for Halloween or for what's the other fall holiday? Thanksgiving. The best pants for Thanksgiving is those adjusted pants, Zach, and that's why this year for Thanksgiving, when we are at the remote location doing the Thanksgiving special, I will be wearing the adjustable sweatpant braces, bufnagle official Thanksgiving pants is what I will be wearing.
That's a good plan. That's a good plan.
That's what we're doing. Okay, wait.
Speaking of bufnagle apparel, if you're looking for bufnagle apparel and you'd like to get a loved one a Christmas present with a nice bufnagle logo on us, please contact us and we'll get back to you.
Yes, we have the merchandising guys working on merch, so that's the thing we need. Okay.
Oh my goodness! But okay. So I made the costume, but as I was making the costume, I totally killed my sewing machine. My sewing machine died.
So did you have just a regular Walmart?
I had like a really just kind of a low end entry level sewing machine. So it died, and I was determined to get the thing made, and I decided to buy a nicer sewing machine. And the change in sewing machines had been huge, so I got the new sewing machine, and I thought, this is amazing. It makes beautiful things. And I was so impressed with how nicely it stitched. I thought I should start sewing more. So even though I had been knitting, I then kind of moved to sewing a little bit. And that is how I found a new hobby that way through into sewing. And I found fabric, and I said, well, let me give this a try. And I looked it up. It was February of 2009. I tried making my first quilt. And at that point, there was the internet. So I did not have to go sit in the library. And I found it online, and I found all these tutorials, and I gave it a try, and I loved it. And so by April of 2009, I was super hooked.
So making a quilt. All right. So when I think of a quilt, I always see that there's like little pieces of fabric put together in some kind of pattern, but they're always kind of like they're similar, but they're all kind of wacky. Sometimes you get like these color patterns and things and different shapes and things stuff put together. And then like in between, there's like keep you warm stuff. And then there's something on the other side, and then you stitch the whole thing. How is that? am I thinking about the quilt the right way?
Yes.
What?
Well, I mean, that would be the basic definition of a quilt is fabric on top, batting, warm stuff in the middle, other fabric on the back, stitch that together so it doesn't fall apart.
So it's a stitched batting sandwich.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you will appreciate this, Rafe. So the third quilt I made up and I named it Fibonacci Fun.
No way. No
Yes,
way. Okay, because as you're starting to talk about quilts, and I'm looking behind you at that
it
quilt
is.
sitting on the chair, I'm like, I think I need a quilt that is pentominoes.
Oh, yeah,
Could you do that? I mean, could you? Of course, you can do that, but
of
I just got
course.
to. I think you should always. I'm a believer that you should always hide these really nice patterns, these math things, in things. So, how did you make the Fibonacci
So,
into the quilt?
well, I learned that um, Fibonacci numbers because they're so awesome. So, do you, Rafe, math, do you want to explain what Fibonacci numbers are?
Well, okay, so Fibonacci, the Fibonacci sequence, yeah, a sequence is where you take the third number is the sum of the first two, all
Yeah.
right, and then the fourth number is the sum of the second and the third, and the fifth is right. So you get this, you get a sequence of numbers, and they tend to grow kind of spirally, and there are places where they show up in nature, like they show up like in spirals, like where seeds are in a sunflower, and there's all sorts of other places. And
Yes.
there's some remarkable mathematics on Fibonacci that I learned recently about like infinite continuing fractions and all sorts of wacky things. But I'll send you that link.
That's super cool. So and so those numbers, that sequence, because it is something that shows up in nature a lot, like it is very pleasing to your eye. And so that if you make things, if you make a block that is 3 inches wide, and then so it's like 1 1 2, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus
Yep.
2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 5 is 8. So if you make a block that is 3 inches wide next to a block that is 5 inches wide, that looks really nice. A 5 inch wide thing next to an 8 inch thing looks fabulous. So I did that. I made strips that were in those varying widths based on which Fibonacci number was the next in the
So
series.
the widths of the squares were
You have the right one.
Fibonacci.
Yep, they were.
All right. So, but they're all the same height.
Yep.
So that you get strips then that will
Yes.
I'm going to appeal to my math friends here that will tessellate
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
surface,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All right, and then okay, so you did. So how far did you go? 3, 5, 8,
Um,
13.
I think 13 was maybe the widest. Otherwise, it gets too wide.
Right, it
Yeah.
gets really big really quick. So but you
Yeah.
go so you went across, so like each little piece was a stripe, a different piece of fabric, and then you
Yeah.
had a bunch of those rows there.
Yep, I did. And it ended up looking awesome. And it was really fun to create because that totally appealed to my mathy side.
Were you going to say nerd? I heard the word nerd.
Nerd, yes, I
It was,
told
it was
nerd.
a,
There's
Zach
so
is
much.
dying here. Zach is absolutely dying.
You're like not the mathy guy, but it quilting very much appeals to mathy people. So a lot of I got really involved in quilting, and so that I made 14 to 18 quilts a year or so. But I also was blogging a lot. I started blogging. So the big thing I think with hobbies is being able to do it in community in some way. Okay, because now, so with knitting, I could take it along to the carpool line. I could sit and chat with friends at the lacrosse game, but like you totally can't do that with your sewing machine, right? You can't haul it along. And we don't really have the quilting circles of old, that I don't know, have you ever
Didn't
heard
they
of
used
that?
to have a quilting bee? Wasn't that a
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, where because you would hand quilt things. So um so everybody started creating community online through blogs and Flickr, which was does anybody know about Flickr anymore?
Oh yeah, we have Flickr.
Facebook,
We do flickery things.
Okay, yeah. So, Flickr groups, and then especially now at this point, Instagram, because a lot of people burnt out on blogging. Blogging takes a lot of time.
Well, you have to write complete sentences, and you have to like
you have to, and you upload and edit your pictures and what. And but that whole thing is you have some kind of community going in your hobby, and it was so I met so many awesome people making all of these quilts every year, and I would make them for all the teachers got end of the year quilt gifts. All the family members, if you got married, you got a quilt.
you get a quilt, and you get a quilt, you get a quilt,
and a quilt for you, and a quilt for you, and a quilt for you. And so it was super awesome. And then another thing that we would do to generate community for ourselves and in quilting is have bees remotely. So you would have say like we decided to make a group, and all of us, and so if it was my turn, I would say, okay, we are going to make a quilt based on the 7 wonders of the world. So
a bufnagle quilt.
Yes, a bufnagle quilt.
Wait, is this my Christmas present?
It is. It is. And then I say, okay, Zach, I would like you to please paper piece me one of your favorite wonder of the world, some representation of that.
Paper piece. Wait.
Paper piece. Yep. So
wait. What do you mean paper? What was that word?
So paper piecing. So
Yeah.
you have a design that you have you could make it on the computer, whatever. You draw it, and then you take it apart in a way that basically your finished quilt block looks like the object. It's a really cool way. I don't know if there's any way I could describe it without having.
It's called paper.
Okay, so you are each going to make one of those for me, and then you will send the quilt piece that you made to me, and then I will put it all together. I will sew all those individual wonders of the world together into a large finished quilt that I then stitch together, and then like that's my quilt, which is super awesome. And then it's Zach's turn. Well, so maybe Zach would have requested the 7 wonders of the world. Zach, you're going to have to request something else. Because we'll have been tired of making 7 wonders of the world by the time it's your turn. So
that's right. So I could be like, we could send like different kinds of donuts to Zach.
Oh, yes. We could all make different donuts. So those are kind of quilting bees that we made. But then, so this was a super cool idea. Because you can only be in so many quilting bees, and you can only do this so many times, right? So people burn out on this. But this one girl, she made a quilting bee that was called Do Good Stitches. And it's still going on, actually, which is awesome. And you would say, okay, I want to join. And she would put you into groups of 10. And then one person, you would take turns being the leader, and you would decide, okay, this time everybody's going to make Ohio Star blocks or whatever kind of quilt block it is going to be. And then we would all make that, and everybody would send it to the leader person in your group. And then that person, when she makes the quilt, you then donate it to like a women's shelter or a children's group or something like that. And it was so amazing. So much, and I participated in a few rounds of that.
What's the effort? Because I thought what you said, I thought where you were going with this was that that everybody makes their own square out of fabric. But you say you make you do a paper piece of your component, and then the leader that's a lot of work for the leader. Is there a way to make it like everybody just send your completed square? Would that make it? Is that a thing, or is that not?
Oh no! Oh, so that is how it goes. I didn't explain it.
Oh, I thought. Okay, so you make the actual fabric square.
Yep, of whatever it is,
and then you send that, and then they have to put. I thought you said you have to you paper piece it. like you just kind of make you sketch the drawing thing, but no, you actually make the fabric.
You actually stitch your fabric together and send it on. Yeah.
Well, see, that's what we talked about last week with Bob, was the importance of the community. It's fun to do these things on your own, and it promotes, you get development, you get you get better, you become a better person.
Yep.
But when you can connect with the community, then you can grow this thing into something that's bigger than the sum of the parts, one of those synergy kinds of things.
Yep.
And that sounds exactly like that. So do they have things like, let's make the world's biggest quilt, or let's make a quilt in the shape of like I don't know, the Statue of Liberty or something? I mean, do they do that sort of thing, or is it all pretty much squares and it has to go on a bed?
I'm sure somebody has made a massive quilt like that, but no, generally people are making usable quilts.
So you have a really nice sewing machine.
I do.
And what is it? Okay, so like when I was a kid, my mom got a new sewing machine, all right?
Yeah.
And it was like, this was probably mid 70s.
Yeah.
And I think this was pretty, I'm going to say it's pretty high end, but it was as high end as you could get in Hartford, Wisconsin, which was like, who knows? But it had this is before the computer chips were in everything. And it had these little, I guess they were these little cams that you would stick in, and you would turn each cam had multiple stitches in it, and it was like mechanically programmed. Like if you wanted to make this kind of wacky stitch, and you put this cam in and turn it to here, and then it would make that stitch. I don't know. Oh, I don't know what it was doing mechanically, but it was kind of interesting to me that there were all these little cams to play with, and I was told I couldn't play with them because I might break them. But I thought,
breaking something?
No, never did that. So, all right, so you have this, but so do you? I assume that you can take the sewing machine out and turn it on, step on the foot pedal, and sew up whatever you need to sew together. But can you program it too to do all sorts of everything? Can you do could you do like the embroidering of the Bufnagle logo on a shirt?
I cannot. So I know.
All right, we got to scrap this whole episode.
I know. Sorry,
delete, Zach.
Yeah, that's a different kind of machine. Well, some of the fancy machines will do programmed embroidery, but I've never really been into the embroidery thing. So,
well, I think if you're going to embroider, you ought to embroider with, and if you're going to have just the machine do it faster, it's like, well,
yeah,
okay, but
yeah.
All right, so you do the quilts.
Yes.
You did the knitting.
Yes.
All right. Did you ever crochet? That's like knitting with just one hook.
I did. Okay, so I couldn't. Oh my God. I could not crochet for the life of me for so long. I could make a line. I could not get the goofy thing to become more than
a flat thing
or anything. So a couple years ago, I decided that I would conquer crochet. So I taught myself crochet, and that was tons of fun because I've made lots of cute little things with crochet.
Doesn't it pretty much make like a slip knot inside a slip knot inside a slip knot, and that's what allows you?
Yeah.
Do you ever do that, Zach, with a big string?
Nope.
Make it look like a big knot, but then you're like, hey, look, it's a big knot, and then you like,
no, that would not be any fun. That would not be any fun.
All right, so you did the crocheting, and you did this.
Yeah.
No, but you okay, so you're a trained engineer, but you don't do that anymore officially, right? So you were a mechanical engineer, you were a space engineer, you were a
mechanical engineer, and I actually for a little bit of time I blended my mechanical engineering with my sewing love, and I was a trained Bernina repair tech. So
Bernina's a sewing machine.
Yep, high-end Swiss sewing machine. And they sent me to Bernina University for a week, and I got trained to repair sewing machines. And it was like the best week ever.
Okay, wait. So this has got to be somewhere in Europe, right?
No, that would have been super cool. Bernina has a very large headquarters near where I used to live in Illinois. Wow. And so I went there for my week long of training, but that was super cool. So I learned how to repair sewing machines.
So when they break, what happens? I mean, how do they Like, okay, so can you explain to me how it works? Because I don't get it. I know there's okay, so there's a spool on the top with thread coming in, and it goes.
Yep. Yep.
Threading it is always the thing. All right, you got to get it threaded right. But then it goes down and it goes into the. You can't
In,
see me into that hole
in
through
the
the
needle.
needle,
Yep.
and the hole is at the tip instead of at the end, like when I sew by hand.
Right.
But then on the bottom, there's this bobbin. You
Yep.
have to wind the bobbin and put that on there in a special way. And that thread comes up from the bottom, and there's the other one comes to the top, and it goes up and down, and somehow it gets sewn.
Yes.
How does it work?
The super simple explanation is that the bobbin sits with a hook down underneath the fabric,
like a hook, like a
yeah, like
claw?
Captain Hook.
Okay.
Whatever. So Captain Hook. So the needle with the thread goes down through the fabric.
Yep.
The hook rotates around, grabs the thread from the needle,
right,
and pulls it around the bobbin. So it's looping it around the bobbin, and it's gathering up the thread that's under there in the bobbin case.
Right.
And then the feed dogs.
There are feed dogs in a sewing machine.
The feed dogs then scooch the fabric so that it can do the whole thing again. So the biggest issue, as you can imagine,
synchronization.
Yeah. So a big part of if your sewing machine is not working properly, it generally needs the timing fixed so that all of the up, down, the feed dogs, the hook, that all needs to be perfectly synchronized or it's not going to make anything.
Wow. Okay. So is there like a timing belt in there, like in a car, or is it all just mechanical gears against each other? Or?
Some of both. Yeah.
So there are belts. They're like rubber.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And then you can adjust the position. If you start the hook in a different place, obviously, right, it's going to reach the needle at a different point. So sometimes that needs to be adjusted.
So how close to those, like that hook is the hook about the size of the needle? I mean, it's not, it's
bigger.
Well, but does it like hit the needle or come right next to it, or
it gets very close. Yeah. And a lot of times what happens to people is if you pull on your fabric,
the needle gets bent.
Yeah. And then all kinds of bad things happen. And
so
it goes junk in there. And
I've heard that sound.
I know. And it's awful. And sometimes I've had it, needles have chunked off and flown at me. It's terrible.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I had no idea that was,
it's a little dangerous.
Well, I was thinking about like my table saw, and I was wondering if it's complicated but all it does is it spins really fast and the blade goes up and down. And if I want to get something really exciting, I tilt it sideways a little bit to make an angle. So okay. So you're having a great time.
I am.
You crafty thing. You make food and stuff. And your kids are growing up. Some of them are gone now. You got a couple ones still staying home. So what do you have future hobby and crafty plans, or are you are you going to branch out into like, I don't know, what else could you like? I don't know. You're going to make carpet one of these days, or what are you going to do?
Right now I am sewing lots of things like objects. So I reopened my Etsy store and I'm making stuff. So,
are you talking, wait, you're not making like that thing that your crazy aunt from Pewaukee makes, that cover that goes over the tissue box that
no,
you don't make those kinds of things, right?
I made cute little zipper pie. I've been sewing all kinds of things. I've been getting my youngest Mara to sew things and teaching her how to sew things. And then Mara, she has piano lessons that she takes. And while at her piano lesson, I was showing her teacher a couple of the things that I have been making, cute little zipper pouches. And she said, oh, I want to know how to make that. And so I said, yeah, she she said, please show me. And I said, yes, I will show you how to make that. So I'll probably be doing a few little classes to teach her how to sew some things. And so.
Wow. And Christmas is coming up. So you probably have to make things for like the Christmas church bazaar or something like that, right?
Actually, yes. Doing all the things, all the making. I love to make things. So it's a great time. It's a great time.
Well, I think Zach has something he wants to ask you because he asks this to a lot of people. And since you're here on the podcast with us, you get asked this question, Zach.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're on the spotlight, Angela. So
Oh,
what
no.
advice, what little nugget of wisdom can you pass on to our listeners to help them pursue their own adventure of life?
I would say that it is really important to just try stuff, because some of the things I feel like I've been afraid to try, because you see so much these days, all the people doing the amazing things, and it looks super amazing, and you're totally afraid to like, oh, I could never do it that well, so maybe I shouldn't try it. But if you just try it, it's awesome. And I have this one little quote that I need to share with you. And it it actually goes along with all, like, my hobby last year was homeschooling, because I only homeschooled for the 1 year. So the short hobby, although I think I might be able to want to pick it up, but it really points to the need. I think hobby is almost a need, because you need to expand your horizons, to really learn more about the world. And so this was a fabulous thing that Charlotte Mason said, that, okay, the question is not how much does the youth know when he has finished his education, but how much does he care? And about how many orders of things does he care? In fact, how large is the room in which he finds his feet set? And therefore, how full is the life he has before him?
Well, that's what education's all about, right? And then so this hobby crafty stuff that you do is that is fulfilling that, right? I mean, it makes it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we mentioned this last week, and I thought about this over the course of the week and between recordings here, and it's just, we are all like, when we do good, it is gloriously diverse, and when we do poorly, it is tremendously boring and dull. I mean, and we're all the same, right? All the bad looks the same, and all the good looks incredibly different. And about trying stuff, I remember, like, I go out to workshop and I'm like, I have to try to put this stain on this. If I screw this up, I'm going to take it. It's like, but you got to do it, right? You have to take the effort. You got to do the work, and you got to try the new thing.
Yeah.
You got to try something new.
Always try the new thing. And you know what? It's just fabric, or it's just wood, right?
Got to make more wood.
Yep. If you're painting, it's just paper,
and paint
and
a brush.
Oh,
and oops, I got it on the carpet.
That's all right. Try the new thing. Try the new thing.
That all sounds fantastic, Angela. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was a lovely conversation, and I was just happy to be part of it.
Zach was part of it.
Yes.
We were all kind of part of it.
I want to again thank all of our listeners for listening. I want to remind you to go seek the good, be the good, and spread the good. Enjoy the adventure of life.